Deepak, thank you very much to be here in the NOZO to give me this interview. Can you speak a little bit about what are you going to talk about in this Congress these days?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I've been lucky enough to present on two different topics. So I'll be first talking about faith-based CBT, so how we can incorporate spiritual belief to augment and actually increase the effectiveness of CBT therapy. So quite often therapy is a clinical and very kind of medicalized way of working.
Okay.
So we take the person and we think, right, you have a disorder, you have some distress. We're going to talk about that. Very kind of often we don't look at the person here holistically.
Okay.
So we don't take into account their faith, their belief system. Now, obviously, that's an integral part of CBT, but there are certain adaptations we would make based on faith if the clients are talking about faith being important to them and this is the work that they would like to do.
Okay, this
Yeah.
is fantastic. So
Yeah.
basically, you are going to talk about a little bit about the spiritual side also, or
Yes.
mindfulness?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll be talking about mindfulness where that's applicable. So to give you an example, if I was supporting a client who had Christian faith, we would be thinking about what does the Bible say about mental health? What would be Jesus'
All right.
message? What would be the parables from the Bible that would be helpful? What is there about the fellowship of the church or the community that you're part of? And how can you use that for social inclusion,
All
for
right.
positive well-being? If we are talking about Hinduism, for example, we're in India. So if we're talking about Hinduism, I'm thinking more about the kind of historical stories, what lessons we take from the gods and goddesses, how we can learn from their experience, and how we can incorporate the whole culture more holistically. So this isn't just something you do for 1 hour a
Okay.
week that's removed from your life. It takes into account your life experience and adds it. And research is showing this is actually quite effective and leads to better outcomes.
What you are bringing to this Congress and conference is that the importance of the speaking about the spirituality of the person,
Yes,
isn't it?
yes.
So it's very interesting because it's true. When you talk about the person's beliefs, it tends to be easy, isn't it? What do you think about it?
Absolutely. So what Western psychology does is it thinks about accessing thoughts that are internal for that person. So more about how do I feel? What am I thinking? What are my beliefs and my schemas? What this type of work does, it thinks more externally about how do I, as a member of this particular faith, so Islam, Hinduism, Sikhism, Buddhism, Christianity, what do I think and how does that influence my thinking styles? So for example, in Hinduism, we have the concept of karma, so karma as it's called. So every action has a consequence. If I do good things, I will have good things happen to me. If I do bad things, then bad things will happen to me.
Yeah.
So for a person who is depressed, they actually may be very stuck in the depression because they believe it's the effect of karma. I must have done something bad in a past life or in my experiences that I now have psychological distress.
Okay.
And that can be very kind of difficult to sit with, that this is happening. It almost feels like a punishment. It's karmic law. Well, we can flip that on its head and we can think about, okay, well, if karma says action has a consequence, how about we use this as a basis for behavioral activation? How about we start doing fantastic things now so that you will have good
Oh
consequences
my
later?
God, that's so incredible.
So what we are doing is it's still evidence-based CBT. This is still within the guidelines of treatment, but we are bringing a flavor of spirituality and
Yeah.
religious belief into it to augment that whole process.
That's so fantastic because really I'm so happy to talk with you about that because in Brazil also people need to understand more about it, how it is important to talk about the belief, no, the spiritual belief of the person to include in the therapeutic sessions also,
Yes.
instead of only applying the science, yes, and not to look at this side. So
Yes.
it's so fantastic.
Absolutely. And it has so many applications in different scenarios and disorders as well. So I've talked about depression, but if we think about social anxiety, in the Bible it's mentioned that the meek and the mild also have their place as well.
Yeah.
So actually, if your personal disposition is that you are a little bit quieter, that's not a flaw. That just means you have your place and your way of doing things. So we can get kind of biblical references, we can get stories, the messages that are given in religion,
Wow.
and use that to our advantage to help people.
This is fantastic because also you validate the person's
Absolutely.
belief, isn't
Yeah,
it, religion?
yeah. We can validate, and if they're struggling with it and they're questioning it, I would work with the questioning as well. Because
Fantastic.
quite often, if something is being questioned, it's going to be really helpful because they're either going to question it and they're going to find the right answer and it's going to solidify and strengthen their belief, or it's going to be a belief that doesn't fit with their system, and actually freeing them from that belief
Yeah.
actually frees them entirely as a
Fantastic.
person.
Deepak, I have just one question for you.
Absolutely.
Is it new? Is it something new that people are starting to do this kind of treatment, basically including also the religion and also the core belief of the person?
Yeah. So this research has been about for a few years, but it's gaining momentum now. As we think about more bespoke ways of offering therapy to increase effectiveness, this is gaining more popularity and more research is being done. So there's lots of research on culturally adapted CBT, but now the faith CBT is also happening as well. Now this in part has been around for some time, but quite often it's very specific. It's very specific interventions that are done purely by the organizations. So for example, your local synagogue may offer Jewish counseling. The church may put in touch you with a Christian counselor. So it's not been happening formally. So this approach is something that, as momentum in research is gaining,
Okay.
we can then start to formalize this and actually train the therapist to deliver this in an effective
Okay,
way.
this is fantastic. It's like including, isn't
Yes.
it?
So it's not saying you can come, but only bring 60% of yourself to session. I want you to come, I want you to bring 100% of yourself
Yeah,
to the
bring
session.
your beliefs, your core beliefs, your religion, and we work together with that. That's so
Absolutely.
fantastic. I'm sure many people in Brazil is going to be more curious about that in your study. Thank you so much for your disposition to give me this interview. You are so kind.
Thank you.
and
That's
gentle.
kind.
And
Thank
then,
you very
yes,
much. It's always a pleasure talking
if someone
to you.
would like to understand more about you, to fund you, how can they do?
Absolutely. So please feel free to access my website. It's Sanctuary Wellbeing in the UK. And I'll be more than happy to provide my contact details, provide any support, guidance, or one-to-one support, or as a clinical tutor, I've offered supervision as well. So there's many ways of contacting me, and I can offer my support in any way that's
That's
possible.
fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're so kind.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much.